Hey everybody, welcome back. So, if you are working as a data engineer, you also probably face this problem every single day. Imagine this, your data table has a column defined as integer, but suddenly the source starts feeding or sending decimal values or double values. Now you are stuck, right? Because traditionally fixing this was honestly a very painful procedure. We had to drop and recreate the table, changing the schema, and it was a very hectic and painful point considering the production data does not wait for our drop create mechanism, right? So here's the good news. Databricks came with this very cool feature, type widening, right? So sometimes the decimal part of the source got truncated while feeding it into the integer column that was defined in our data table. So this overhead has been taken care of by this cool new feature. So now we can safely upgrade our column types from integer to double without rewriting the table and without any downtime. So this increases our credibility on the production environment as well. So this feature where the table type widening allows you to change the column types or wider type without rewriting the underlying data files. You can either change the column types manually or use schema evolution to evolve the column types. I will add this link into the description so you can go through this. Here are the supported type changes, and we can have a look into this a new feature, and the code is also given. What I'm more interested in is showing you practically hands-on on my Databricks environment how this actually works. And also while implementing this, there is also a catch. So when most people try this feature for the first time, it actually looks like it's not working, but that's the catch. We enable type widening and we insert decimal values, and on querying the data they still look like an integer, meaning the decimal part is still not present. So that confusion I will clear it up in this video. Okay, so I'm in my Databricks environment and we will be creating this sales raw table in my bronze catalog, and it has only two columns, an ID as integer and amount as integer. So let's hit execute to create this table with this particular schema. Okay, so our table is created. Now I will be adding these two normal integer values into our sales raw. Let's hit execute. Mhm. And also I will hit execute on this. These are the decimal values that we will add, and normally we haven't enabled the type widening, so these decimal values will got truncated and we will have only the integer part. So ID 3 and 4 will have 45 and 20 respectively. So if we just hit select on our table, it will show as such. Let's order our IDs. So this is how our table looks like. So 45 and 20, the decimal part is truncated. Okay, so this is our table with four IDs. And now let's try to utilize this cool new feature. Let's come a bit below. So I just enable this property of delta type widening, and it got enabled. So now normally if we add two more values with ID 5 and 6, now the decimal part should be there since we widened our delta table, right? So let's hit execute into this and let's see how our table looks like after adding these two new values. So let's also hit this. But we see the ID 5 and 6 still have only the integer part and no decimal part. Why is that? That is because the schema automatically does not change. So we will have to change the columns data type manually before this cool new feature can be taken advantage of. So let's go a bit below and then hit to execute on this part. So this command we already executed. Now we just change the column type to double. If this property wasn't enabled, this command would have resulted in an error. So this property becomes very important, but then a manual step should be followed to change the schema. And then if we insert a new row where our value is in decimal, so now it will already be added into our table. And if we just hit execute on this, it will reflect as such. So see, for the ID 7, we have our decimal value, and the schema of the column is in double. So now a question may arise, what exactly changed with this new feature delta type widening, right? So what exactly changed is we are now able to change a column's data type and therefore update the table schema without having to drop, create, or rewrite any existing data. Earlier, changing a data type would mean a full table rewrite, and all the underlying files had to be read, transformed, and written again. But with this type widening, none of that is required now. Delta simply updates the metadata in the transaction log. The physical data remains exactly the same way it did before. There is no need to run optimize again, no need to rebuild anything. Everything stays as is. And yet we are able to query the data with automatically our new data types are interpreted. So, one last important point before we conclude. If you notice in my example, the column that I used for type widening was the amount column. And normally, columns like amount are not used in any join conditions or any further aggregations normally. However, if you are planning to widen some important column which is further used in joins, filtering, partitioning, or reordering, then it should be definitely double checked that if type widening that column does not have any major impact on the performances. So the key takeaway is very simple. Type widening is safe and powerful, but always be mindful on how the column is further being used in your code or in your scripts. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching and spending your valuable time. I truly appreciate your support. If you found this video very helpful and it cleared some of your doubts, or you consider that you haven't used this feature earlier but will try now, just let me know in the comment section. Please subscribe the channel and hit the like button. Thank you and see you in the next one.